Ladies and gentlemen, the Alabama Senate will now come to order. Our prayer today will be delivered by Dr. Kevin Garrett of First Baptist Church of Atmore. Dr. Garrett is the guest of Senator Albritton.
Let's pray together, please. Heavenly Father, may I set aside my preferences, my ideas, and my concerns for me, Father. May I pray for the individuals and the families, everyone from Pages up through the folks that work in this room. Father, they all have families, they all have needs, they all have hurts, they all have cares. I just pray you would bless them today. I pray you regard their hearts and their heads. Father, you regard their homes. And Father, that the decisions made in this room would honor and glorify you. Thank you for the privilege of being able to lift these men and women in prayer. I pray for this great state of Alabama. God, thank you for your blessings. Thank you for the rough times that we can appreciate the good times. And Father, may the right choices be made from this floor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Dr. Garrett. Today the pledge will be led by Senate Page Wilkins Riddle. Wilkins is paging for Senator Reed.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Wilkins. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton. Here. Mr. Allen. Here. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Conley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Milson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 27 senators present, which is a quorum. The Senate is ready to transact business.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we excuse absent senators.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we adopt the journal from the previous legislative day and that we excuse absent senators.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Thanks, Senator Wagner. Now I'll move on to introduction of bills. Senator Conley.
President, I make a motion we introduce bills throughout the day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Thanks, Senator Conley. All right, no committee reports. Now move on to motions and resolutions.
Mr. President,
Senator Chasteen.
I'd like to recommit Senate Bill 202.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Hold on one second, Senator Wagner. We're in the middle of getting a bill reintroduced right now.
Senate Bill number 202 is recommitted to the Committee on Finance and Taxation Education.
All right, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I have a resolution from Rules.
All right, Secretary Reed received the resolution from Rules.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 34, recognizing May 2023 as Tuberous Sclerosis Complex Awareness Month in order to raise awareness for the need for research, proper diagnosis, and family support for individuals who suffer from tuberous sclerosis complex, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President, move
Wagner.
adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President, I have
Wagner.
a resolution from Rules.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution from Rules.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 26, recognizing the month of April 2023 as Alabama Native Plant Month, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President, move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any any opposed? The resolution's adopted.
Mr. President, I have a resolution from
All right,
Rules.
Secretary, read and receive the resolution.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 9, designating the week of September 11th as Public Safety Week, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I have a resolution from Rules.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution from Rules, please.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 86, recognizing the Alabama Yom HaShoah commemoration on April 18th, 2023, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolution from Rules.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I have a resolution from Rules.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution from Rules, please.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 70, commending Mr. Joseph P. Borg for outstanding service to his country and to the state of Alabama, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolution from Rules.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I have a resolution from Rules.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution from Rules.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 22, recognizing the Millennial Action Project and the Alabama Future Caucus, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President, move adoption of the resolution from Rules.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President,
All right, Senator Chambliss.
I have an SJR commending a former county commissioner that's passed away.
All right, any objection? All right, hearing none, so ordered. Secretary, read and receive the SJR, please.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 56 by Senator Chambliss, mourning the death and celebrating the life of Commissioner W.O. Pace.
Mr. President, I move immediate consideration.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. All right, this time I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery, the guest of Senator Gudger, and I call your name. If you could please stand, the Marion County Commissioners. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate. Senator Carnley.
President, I have a SJR that I want to send to Rules.
All right, you can just submit it. All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution and send to Rules, please.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 57 by Senator Carnley, rescinding all previous resolutions of the Alabama Legislature which request Congress to call a convention pursuant to Article 5 of the United States Constitution, is referred to the Committee on Rules.
All right, Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to introduce a SJR.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Secretary, read and receive the SJR, please.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 58 by Senator Coleman Madison and others, celebrating the Alabama Delta Days on May 11, 2023.
All right, Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the resolution adoption if there are no objections using previous. Do we have?
All right, any objection? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution adopted. Thank you, Senator Coleman
Mr.
Madison.
Chairman, just let me say that the event is next week. They will be here painting the town red as usual.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Senator Butler.
Mr. President, I have a commendatory resolution.
All right, any objection to receiving it? All right, Secretary Ream, receive the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution number 59 by Senator Butler commending the Barron Critical Weather Institute and its founder, President and Chief Executive Officer Bob Barron.
Mr. President, I move third reading, immediate adoption.
All right, any objection? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. Thanks, Senator Butler. Senator Beasley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I have a Senate resolution to honor Chester Higgins Jr. for lifetime achievement. I'd like to have it read, please.
All right, Secretary Ream, receive the resolution and please read it at length.
Senate Resolution honoring Chester Higgins Jr. for lifetime achievements by Senator Beasley. Whereas Chester Higgins Jr. was born in Fairhope, Alabama in 1946, he grew up in New Brockton, Alabama, and he now resides in Brooklyn, New York. And whereas Mr. Higgins picked up the camera in 1967 as a student at the Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, he was mentored there by the official school photographer, P.H. Polk, in 1970. Mr. Higgins graduated with a bachelor degree in business management. Whereas Mr. Higgins received additional mentoring from world-renowned photojournalists, including Arthur Rothstein of Look magazine, and his work on Depression-era Farm Service Agency projects, Cornell Kappa, the founding director of the International Center of Photography, and Gordon Parks of Life magazine, and a pioneer of documentary photojournalism. Whereas Mr. Higgins worked as a photographer for the New York Times for 39 years, from 1975 to 2014, where he documented the history and traditions of minority cultures. Whereas Mr. Higgins has traveled to the African continent more than 50 times since his first journey to the Senegal in 1971. Whereas Mr. Higgins was a 2022 inductee of the International Photography Hall of Fame and Museum, a 2021 recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award of the Silurian Society, a 2013 Global Citizenship Award recipient from the International Youth Leadership Institute, the Gordon Parks Legend Award recipient, and the Nubian Women's Act Circle Award recipient. Whereas Chester Higgins Jr. is a published author of many photographic books, including Student Unrest at Tuskegee Institute, A Chronology, Black Woman with Harold McDougall, Drums of Life with Ordy Coombs, Sometimes Ago with Ordy Coombs, Feeling the Spirit, Searching the World for the People of Africa with Betsy Kissam, Echo of the Spirit, A Photographer's Journey with Betsy Kissam, Ancient Nubia with Marjorie M. Fisher, Peter Lacovera, Salima Ikram, and Sue H. Diaria. It's Been a Beautiful Soul, and Black Power Television with Gail Wald, and Sacred Nile with Betsy Kissam. Whereas Mr. Higgins has exhibited individually and in group shows in 19 states, including his home state of Alabama, Arkansas, California, Georgia, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, Washington, Washington, D.C., and Wisconsin. He has shown his work internationally in Paris, France, Berlin, Germany, Caracas, Venezuela, Seoul, South Korea, and Accra, Ghana. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the Legislature of Alabama that Chester Higgins Jr. is heartily congratulated for his bountiful career and lifetime achievements, and we are honored to offer this resolution to him in celebration of his art with highest regard and best wishes for all future endeavors.
Mr. President, I'd like for all members of the Senate to be co-sponsors on this bill.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, would you like to move for adoption?
I'd like to move for adoption.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution is adopted. Thanks, Senator Beasley.
Mr. President,
Senator Schofield.
we have a message from the governor.
All right, Secretary Reed received the message from the governor.
Message from the governor. Ladies and gentlemen, I received Senate Bill 14 and believe that the bill should be amended to further expand the kinds of protection from abuse filings that would be exempt from court costs and fees. As enrolled and presented to me, this bill would amend Alabama Code Section 355G to add the list of filings and currently exempt from court costs and fees a motion to contempt by a party seeking enforcement of a previously entered protection from abuse judgment. I believe that several other kinds of protection-free abuse filings similarly should be exempt from the assessment of court costs and fees to broadly ensure access to the court system for victims of domestic violence. For this reason, and at the request of the bill sponsoring, I am returning Bill Senate 14 to you, the body in which it originated, without my signature and with the below executive amendment. Please amend Senate Bill 14 on page 3 by deleting lines 72 through 79 and inserting in lieu thereof the following: no court cost or fees shall be assessed for the filing, issuance, registration, modification, enforcement, dismissal, withdrawal, or service of a protection order or a petition for protection under this chapter. No court cost or fees shall be assessed for the issuance of a witness subpoena under this chapter. 3, costs and fees may be assessed against the defendant at the discretion of the court. With the above proposed executive amendment, will remove my objection to this bill. Respectfully submitted, Kay Ivey, Governor.
Mr. President.
Senator Chambliss.
Mr. President, this was my bill, and some of these issues came to light after we passed it in the House. And it basically, for any type of modification of order or that type of thing, it just makes it where those seeking these orders from contempt don't have to pay those fees. It's basically in line with what we already did, but it added modifications to those orders. So with that, Mr. President, if there are no questions, then I would concur with the governor's executive amendment.
All right, let's use long roll.
Using the long roll.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Ayes, 0 nays. The Senate concurs on Senate Bill 14. Before we get going, I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery. These are family members of Jess Skaggs, my Chief of Staff. When I call your name, if you could please stand. Heath Herring, his brother. Brock Herring, his nephew. And Charlina Skaggs, his wife. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I have some resolutions from rules that I would offer en masse.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the resolutions en masse from rules.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 25 receives a favorable report. Also, House Joint Resolution number 11 receives a favorable report. Also, House Joint Resolution number 21 receives a favorable report. Also, House Joint Resolution number 24 receives a favorable report. Also, House Joint Resolution number 27 receives a favorable report. Also, House Joint Resolution number 28 receives a favorable report. Also, House Joint Resolution number 29 receives a favorable report. And also, House Joint Resolution 49 receives a favorable report.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of these resolutions from rules.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolutions are adopted.
Mr. President,
Senator Albritton,
may I have a personal privilege, if I might, for a moment?
you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, if I might, long ago, in a galaxy just a few miles east of here, I guess, when I was a young man, I went to law school out there, and I attended a class that was taught by someone who was an extremely astute individual. He wasn't extremely good looking by any means, but he was able to get his points across pretty well. Mr. Joe Borg was a instructor there, and he taught a student during classes about business and about the matters dealing with laws concerning that. I think I passed the class fairly well. And then he went on, I went to practice a little law, but he went on to greater and greater heights. Mr. Borg has served for a number of years as the head of the Securities Commission of Alabama. Last month, I introduced a joint resolution that's been passed and signed, and at this time, I'd like to ask if, Mr. President, if that could be read before the Senate.
All right, Secretary, read the resolution, please.
And if I might, Mr. Borgen and his staff, I think, in the gallery, if they might be recognized.
You want to recognize them now or after it's read? After.
We can recognize them now. I'd like for them all to be.
Okay, yeah.
Make
Guest
sure
of
they hear
Senator Albritton, Alabama Security Commissioners are in the gallery. Alan Carroll, if you could please stand. Hope Marshall, Mike Hill, Mark Fowler, Amanda Sin, and Mr. Joe Borg. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate.
If I get the resolution.
Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution commending Mr. Joseph P. Borg for outstanding service to his country and to the state of Alabama. Whereas highest commendations are herein proudly presented to Director Joseph P. Borg for outstanding service to his country and to the state of Alabama during his 29-year career with the state of Alabama. Whereas Mr. Borg was born on November 20th, 1952 in the state of New York. He completed a bachelor's degree at the City College of New York and received his law degree from Hofstra University School of Law in Hampstead, New York. Whereas Mr. Borg began his career with the state of Alabama as director of the Alabama Securities Commission in 1994 and has served in that role continuously since then. There is no person who has done more to selflessly serve the interest of the state of Alabama in protecting investors and in maintaining stability in our financial markets. And whereas Mr. Borg practiced for private law firms and public banks in commercial, financial, securities, banking, and contracts litigation before entering public service, thereby honing the legal knowledge and litigation skills he would bring to bear in his efforts on behalf of the state of Alabama. He also served as adjunct faculty at both the collegiate and law school level for 20 years, teaching the UCC banking and securities law, thereby enhancing the teaching skills he would need to educate investors, broker-dealers, and other public officials and leaders. And whereas Mr. Borg served as the director of the ASC for nearly 3 decades and is the only person in history to accomplish that, and is also the only person to be elected and to serve 3 terms as president of the North American Securities Administrators Association. Additionally, he has served as a member of the NASAA Board of Directors, Chair of the International Committee, Chair of the Enforcement and Ombudsman, as well as a member of the Board of Directors of the National White Collar Crime Center, the Investor Protection Trust, and the Investor Protection Institute. And whereas Mr. Borg served as a United States delegate to an intergovernmental expert group for the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, and his service added immeasurably to the understanding of international fraud and the criminal misuse and falsification of identity. And whereas between 1997 and 2018, Mr. Borg was asked to share his expertise and opinions on numerous occasions by providing testimony to the United States Congress, and he testified before both the Senate and House committees and subcommittees, including banking, financial services, capital markets, and investigations, about such matters as microcap securities fraud, criminal elements in the markets, the role of state securities regulators, fighting white-collar crime, initial public offerings of private equity and hedge funds, consolidating the regulatory functions of the NISD and NYSE, illicit practices affecting senior citizens, SIPA and SIPC modernization, and ensuring effectiveness, fairness, and transparency in securities law enforcement. And whereas Mr. Borg also represented state securities regulators at the National Conference of State Legislatures to address the negative impact of federal preemption of state securities laws, and was a tireless fighter for consumers for the need to maintain parallel federal and state regulatory schemes to provide comprehensive nationwide protection for investors at all levels. Whereas Mr. Borg did all of the above in a selfless manner that demonstrated his love for his country, his state, and his fellow citizens. Now therefore be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that Mr. Joseph P. Borg is highly commended for his steadfast service to his country and the Alabama community he calls home. And this resolution is offered to him in highest regard, along with best wishes for continued success.
Mr. President.
Senator Barfoot.
Thank you so much. First of all, Professor Borg, good to see you. He will always be known as Professor Borg to me. I had the opportunity to attend Jones Law School maybe a couple of years or a couple of decades maybe after my colleague. After. However, I had the benefit of having Professor Borg, and he made classes interesting. They were entertaining and educational. And that's hard to do sometimes whenever you're studying law. And I'm forever grateful. I'd reached a point after graduated from college where I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. After 6 years and a degree of international studies, that and a nickel could have bought you a piece of bubble gum maybe. He was able to rejuvenate my love for the law and pursuit of that. So I just want to say a personal thank you and debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much.
Mr. President, thank you for the time. Mr. Joe Borg, thank you very much. Good friend. Adios. You'll be missed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Albritton. Senator Elliott.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that we be able to accept committee reports throughout the day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, any other motions or resolutions? We can come. All right, we're going to go to committee reports. Secretary, call the first committee.
From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, House Bill number 24 receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, House Bill number 276 receives a favorable report by a vote of 10 ayes and 0 nays. From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, House Bill number 310 receives a favorable report by a vote of 10 ayes and 0 nays. From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, House Bill number 311 receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays. From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 256 receives a favorable report with substitute by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Where'd he go? Sessions. I gotta go get him. Sessions.
From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 258 receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
These bills received a second reading and be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. This concludes committee reports. All right, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I have a report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary Reed received the report from the Committee on Rules.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Resolution number 60, Special Order Calendar. Be it resolved by the Senate that the following bills in the order name shall be the special paramount continuing order of business, taking precedence over all other matters until disposed of for the 16th legislative day only. On page 26 of the calendar, Senate Bill 222 by Senator Gavan relating to the legislature. On page 27, House Bill 157 by Representative Faulkner relating to public works contracts. On page 10, Senate Bill 205 by Senator Orr relating to state government. On page 18, House Bill 57 by Representative Lee relating to circuit clerks. On page 26, Senate Bill 215 by Senator Hatcher relating to the building codes. On page 31, House Bill number 29 by Representative Treadaway relating to motor vehicles. On page 32, House Bill 44 by Representative Blackshear relating to the Alabama Job Creation and Military Stability Commission. On page 19, House Bill 238 by Representative Kitchens and Ledbetter relating to motor vehicle registrations. On page 12, Senate Bill 57 by Senator Weaver relating to the Board of Nursing. On page 11, Senate Bill 199 by Senator Orr relating crimes and offenses. On page 13, Senate Bill 162 by Senator Butler relating to the Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. On page 12, Senate Bill 169 by Senator Allen relating to municipalities. On page 18, Senate Bill 90 by Senator Livingston relating to taxation and revenue. On page 28, House Bill 55 by Representative Gavan relating to health. On page 33, House Bill 62 by Representative Robbins relating to building codes. On page 17, House Bill 65 by Representative Collins relating to competitive bidding. On page 18, House Bill 103 by Representatives Baker relating to education employees. On page 31, House Bill number 21 by Representative Brown relating to criminal procedure. On page 27, House Bill 164 by Representative Witt relating to public K-12 education. On page 32, House Bill 210 by Representative Marks relating to the military.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the report from the Committee on Rules. This is in short row.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Mr. President.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The special order calendar is adopted. All right, Senator Sessions.
Mr. President, I have a SJR I'd like to go to rules, if I could get unanimous consent.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Secretary Reed receive the SJR and send to rules, please.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Sessions.
Senate Joint Resolution number 61 by Senator Sessions establishing the Joint Study Commission on Feral Swine in Alabama is referred to the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary, call the first bill on the special order calendar.
On page 26 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 222 by Senator Gavan relating to the legislature. BIR pending.
Mr. President, I move the BR used in previous role. There's no objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays, the EBR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 26 of the calendar, Senate Bill 222 by Senator Gavan relating to the legislature. Committee amendment pending.
We move adoption of the amendment that came from basically House leadership. If we can adopt that on previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays, the committee amendment is adopted.
Mr. President,
All right,
I have an amendment.
all right. Secretary, read and receive the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 222 by Senator Butler. Replace line 58 on page 3 with the following. Replace line 62 through 63 on page 3 with the following. Replace line 82 on page 3 with the following. After line 99 on page 4, insert the following.
All right, Senator Butler.
Mr. President, all this does is raise the number of additional members on contract review from 3 to 4 members for the House, for the Senate, one each from House and Senate. Move adoption of the amendment, previous roll.
Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Butler, what is the reason for you adding one member on each side?
One member on each side because I forgot to ask for it. I took it for granted. I was one of the founding members. That's for me.
So this is a personal amendment for you to be added to the Contract Review Committee.
I've served on it ever since 1984 when Senator Dixon and I founded the Contract Review Committee.
And just because you've served on it all that time, you think you should be on it now?
I do. And that's what the amendment's about.
How many women are on this committee, Senator?
Sorry?
How many women are on this committee?
I don't know the makeup right now.
Well, before this amendment passes, Mr. President, I'd like to know how many women and how many African Americans, and so I will know that this is a committee that is well diversified.
Right.
Because it's a very important committee. But, and especially since someone is given an amendment to add themselves to a committee. I've been here 26 years and I don't recall anything like that happening. Not saying that it hasn't, I just don't recall that. But I would like to know, since you're adding people, we may need to add more than just one, depending on what those numbers are.
Yeah, I have this amendment. If you want to get an amendment, it's open.
No, sir. I want to know what the Contract Review Committee, if there is someone in this building who can hear my voice, can tell me what the makeup of the Contract Review Committee is. I'd like that information now. And if I can't get it now, I mean, I'll just talk until they can bring it to me.
Senator Figures, whoever's on the committee now could speak to that. I don't know who's on there now.
You made that clear, Senator, but I'm asking somebody who does have that information, which there is somebody here in the Alabama State House who has that information. And I'd like to know.
The budget chairs.
Can you bring it to me? Mr. Chairman, may I leave, I'm sorry, Mr. President, may I leave the mic for a few seconds to get this information? There's someone who,
you can yield to Senator Smithman. Yeah, Senator Smithman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, when you come up next for your bill, you got another bill on the calendar, I think, don't you? You have a bill on, not another one, because it's just
another. I've got one on page. Let's see. Page 3, top of the calendar, page 3.
Okay, when that come, I do have a couple of things I want to address. I want you and I to address, and I want to address it just like we're standing now. This is not the time for me to do it because you're dealing with your amendment in that kind of situation. But I just want you to know that, so you'll kind of be at least thinking. You'll say, now I know he got something that he needs to address with me, and so instead of me kind of coming up cold turkey and trying to address something with you, but I do have something that kind of concerns me. Okay, and so I don't know any other better way, just simply because of I guess, just to clear something up. Let me say it that way. I need to clear something up.
We'll get together.
Yeah. But so when you know, at that time, I'll come up and I'll do that simply because I'm gonna try to keep it germane. It may not be totally germane to the subject, but at least it'll be germane to the sponsor. Okay, so I'll do that. Right. So you say you've served on contract, let's talk a little bit about contract review, not just you. When I first came in the legislature, I was on contract review. And I was on contract review with, I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Robertson in the House. He played the guitar. Anybody remember him, Representative Robertson? You remember him, Representative Robertson out of the House? He passed away.
Oliver. Oliver?
Not Oliver. No. He's a Republican. But he's from. Is it Johnny Robinson? Johnny Robinson. Yeah, because he also used to work with that military group, the Army and the militaries. Well, he and I served on contract review. You want me to do something? Okay. Okay.
I've
Just
got
let me
a motion
know.
I want to make as soon as.
Yeah. Just let me know. Just let me know. But anyway, we served together, and that group of people. Also, we were kind of like a little herd of people together. We served on Sunset as well together, most of us, and it was a pleasure with him. Now, I'll tell you something. I think that contract review ought to have even more power than they have. I do. Okay. Mr. President, I'm yielding back to.
All right, Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think you were trying to say something, Senator Butler?
I asked recognition by the President. Mr. President?
Yes, Senator Butler.
I'd like to move at this time to withdraw the amendment.
Any objection?
No.
Hearing none, so ordered. All right.
Thank you, Senator Butler, and thank you, Mr.
withdrawn.
President.
All right, now we're back on the bill.
So with that, I would move for a final passage of the bill as amended, using previous row without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 222 passes. Thank you, Senator Gavan. Secretary, call next bill on the calendar.
On page 27 of the calendar, House Bill number 157, relating to public works contracts. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption BR using short roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 27 of the calendar, House Bill number 157 by Representative Faulkner, relating to public works contracts.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
under the present law in public works construction, the law says steel must be used. This bill simply adds the word iron, and basically that's what the bill does. So there's.
Yes, Senator Smithman.
Do you think we could get the behind the iron, we could get ore, the iron ore, what we got inside our mountains.
There he
that
is.
made Birmingham famous.
That's right.
Iron ore. I know we got some iron there because we got U.S. Steel, so I know we got iron and they getting it.
There you go.
But you think we could throw iron ore on there?
We could.
That'd make us we get back to being one of the top cities in the country.
There you go.
We have so much productivity coming out of there. So where Faulkner? He up here? Because we do it without Faulkner up here, he gonna have a fit.
I know it. We better go ahead and pass it.
Yeah, go on and pass it then.
Mr. President, move passage of House Bill 157 using the short roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 157 passes. Thanks, Senator Wagner. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill 205 by Senator Orr relating to state government, BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
I'd move adoption of the BIR using previous rule.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill 205 by Senator Orr relating to transportation.
Senator Orr.
Okay, go on.
Mr. President, I have an amendment.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment, please.
Amendment to Senate Bill 205 by Senator Orr. Replace lines 84 on page 3 through line 88 on page 4 with the following. Public Corporation Board Commission Agency.
I would move adoption of the amendment which focuses the bill on to be solely about rural counties and helping them with small loans. I'd move adoption using the previous rule.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Orr amendment's adopted. Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. This will help small counties get financing help down to $1 million. I'd move third reading using the previous rule.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 205 passes. Thank you, Senator Orr. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 18 of the calendar, House Bill number 57 by Representative Lee relating to circuit clerks. BR pending.
Senator Weaver.
Unless Albritton comes in. I'd like to move BIR using previous rule, no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 18 of the calendar, House Bill number 57 by Representative Lee relating to circuit clerks.
Senator Weaver.
Can I give it to Senator Albritton?
Sure.
just-
Senator Albritton.
Thank you. BIR is done. Thank you, Mr. President. This is the circuit clerk's pay raise bill that we passed. This has already come through this body and such. I'd move for passage using previous rule without objection.
All right, any objection? All right, hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 57 passes. Thanks, Senator Albritton. Secretary, call next bill.
On page 26 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 215 by Senator Hatcher relating to building codes. BR pending.
Senator Hatcher.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. President. I'd like to move for the adoption of the BIR using the previous rule.
Okay, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 26 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 215 by Senator Hatcher relating to building codes.
All right, Senator Hatcher.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a friendly amendment
Okay.
to the bill.
Secretary read and receive the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 215 by Senator Hatcher. Replace lines 115 on page 5 with the following.
All right, Senator Hatcher.
All right, Mr. President, this bill allows for authorization for counties to, municipalities to adopt procedures for the installation and activation of temporary permanent electricity and temporary permanent gas under certain conditions. If there are no questions, I'd like to move for final passage using the previous roll without objection.
Do you have a question, Senator Sessions?
Yes.
All right, Senator Hatcher, do you yield?
Yes.
All right, Senator Sessions.
Hey, Senator Hatch, are we on the amendment? We're on the amendment, Mr. President? What exactly did the amendment do? I remember this bill in committee, and I thank you for bringing it. It's a great bill.
Right.
But what did the amendment do?
The amendment where sewer service is not available, requests for temporary permanent electricity or temporary permanent gas must be accompanied by copies of all septic system plans and permits that are approved by the local health department. So that's the only thing.
All right.
All right, thanks, Senator Sessions. Senator Hatcher.
Thank you. Again, if there are no further questions, I'd like to move for final adoption using the previous roll without objection.
On the amendment? All right.
On the amendment, yes.
All right. Any objection using previous roll? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Hatcher amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Hatcher.
Okay. Now we're on the bill itself.
Yeah, final passage.
If there are, I don't see anyone at the mic, so if there are no questions, I'd like to move final adoption using the previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 215 passes. Thanks, Senator Hatcher.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 31 of the calendar, House Bill 29 by Representative Treadaway relating to motor vehicles. VR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Smithland.
I move for unanimous consent to use previous roll passing in the BIR.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 30 of the calendar, House Bill number 29 by Representative Treadaway relating to motor vehicles.
I see my colleague over there, so I'll yield to him at this moment.
All right, Senator Shelnut.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you there, Senator Smithman. I got some concerns. I see Representative Treadaway is the sponsor of this bill, and it's my understanding he's been in the House for like 17 years, and I don't think you've ever worked with him on a bill. So is that true or false?
Well, it's true and false. The truth is, we've been working with, we've been on other sides. Opposite sides working for 17 years. But this time, man, we hooked to the hip. Hooked up to the hip 110% on this bill right here.
Okay, so you are good with this bill? You're okay?
Oh, I'm good with this one.
Okay.
I am good.
Senator.
I'm good enough to be the Senate sponsor, so that's how good I am on this one.
I was just a little worried about you working with Representative Treadaway.
Thanks, Senator Shelnut. All right, Senator Smithland.
Thank you. And I think he's up here somewhere, so he's standing up here now, so we're going to try to honor him. And just quickly telling y'all, this is that exhibition driving bill. I think all y'all have seen it on your news. Folks running around there doing donuts in the middle of the street, speeding, racing. We had 4 people to get killed in Birmingham who were just standing on the sidelines when one of these automobiles went out of control. And we've had just as late as last night, yesterday, they're out at the airport where they really disrupted the whole thing and placed people in danger. The last thing I had the opportunity to sit on a balcony in Midtown, and while I was sitting there, I had a chance to lean over on 2nd Avenue South and 20th Street and see them doing this. Then I looked over here on 3rd Avenue South. They were drag racing down there. What this bill does, it goes from them having to excite them on reckless driving and things of that nature to being able to put some teeth in the bill where they can actually apprehend the car, they can apprehend this person, and if they injure someone, then it can become a Class C felony. This is something that's been adopted by the Big Ten mayors of all the top Big Ten cities in the state, as well as many other municipalities and police departments. So if there's no other questions, I'll move for final passage and ask unanimous consent to use the previous roll on HB 29.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 29 passes. Thank you, Senator Smithman.
We thank you and thank everyone.
And Representative Treadaway, great to have you in the Senate. All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 32 of the calendar, House Bill number 44 by Representative Blackshear relating to the Alabama Job Creation and Military Stability Commission. BR pending.
Senator Beasley.
President, I'll be recognized.
You're recognized.
Okay, I'd like to move for passage of the BR and House Bill 44.
All right, would you like to use previous roll?
Use the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 32 of the calendar, House Bill number 44 by Representative Blackshear relating to the Alabama Job Creation and Military Stability Commission.
Senator Beasley.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move for final passage of the Job Creation Military Stabilization Commission to expand the membership to Fort Benning. So I appreciate the Lieutenant Governor's military package.
Absolutely.
I move for final passage, use the previous roll without it.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Be dispensed with.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 44 passes. Thank you, Senator Beasley. Secretary, call next bill.
On page 19 of the calendar, House Bill number 238 by Representatives Kitchens relating to motor vehicle registrations. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
you move for the adoption of the BR using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted.
Mr. President,
On page 9.
I have
1 second, Senator Wagner. Let me let them read. Hold on. They got to call the bill.
On page 19 of the calendar, House Bill 238 by Representative Kitchens relating to motor vehicle registrations.
Mr. President, I have a resolution.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the amendment.
Amendment to House Bill 238 by Senator Wagner. Replace line 21 on page 1 with the following. Replace line 51 on page 2 with the following.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
this bill creates a distinctive license plate for brain cancer research, and this amendment names that effort, and I move for the adoption of the amendment.
All right, would you like to use previous roll?
Using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Wagner amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I move passage of House Bill 238 as amended using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. (32 ayes, 0 nays). House Bill 238 passes as amended. Secretary, call next bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 257 by Senator Weaver relating to the Board of Nursing. BR pending.
Senator Weaver.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to move the BIR using previous roll, no objection.
All right, let me let the screen get called up. All right, I got a motion to approve the BIR using previous roll. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 57 by Senator Weaver relating to the Board of Nursing. Committee amendment pending.
Senator Weaver.
So there is a committee amendment that I'd like to adopt. It's the work that we did with ACES to add success metrics for these scholarship programs. So that's the basis of that amendment. And I'd like to adopt the committee amendment. Previous roll, no objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Weaver.
So this is the nursing scholarship bill that was a product of the Healthcare Workforce Task Force. And if there are no questions, I'd like to ask for final passage using previous roll with no objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 57 passes. Thank you, Senator Weaver.
Thank you.
All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 11 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 199 by Senator Orr relating to crimes and offenses. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
move adoption of the BIR using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 11 of the calendar, Senate Bill 199 by Senator Orr relating to crimes and offenses.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
I have an amendment.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment, please.
Amendment to Senate Bill 199 by Senator Orr. Replace lines 69 through 72 on page 3 with the following.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
this narrows the focus. You see in the bill, it had Aaliyah in there, and they asked to be removed. They said they have that authority anyway. So at this time, I'd move adoption of the amendment using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Orr amendment's adopted. Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill that came noticing the situation in, I guess, Northern Virginia, where there's a lot of picketing at people's residences, and I see a potential for a problem as our society moves forward with social media able to gather crowds, not just against public elected officials, but perhaps it could be attorneys or people are accused or a judge or anybody that perhaps has an unpopular opinion or position or task or job that folks who go to their residences and create a lot of turmoil. The gentleman across the way has a good amendment. It narrows the scope, and I appreciate his sharing it with me, and we've kind of worked on it, and the amendment that the gentleman brings from across the way is a friendly amendment, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator, for working with me.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 199 by Senator Smitherman. Replace line 58 on page 3 with the following. Replace line 68 on page 3 with the following. Replace line 73 on page 3 with the following.
All right, Senator Smitherman.
Yes, thank you, Senator, for working with me on that, and I'll kind of say it like this. You know, it's probably one of those things that probably could only be, I guess, shaped and framed that way. I'm not being critical of anybody in here now, but it was a lot easier to see where that fit when it was two lawyers standing up here talking and looking at it from a perspective like that. So I appreciate you doing that, and thank you very much. And I think that it does make it better. And I'll say this before I sit down. I don't want nobody to come to my house either, and on my front porch, right outside my front porch, doing anything like that. That's the one piece, what they call the sanity peace place that I can go to just kind of get away from everything else, and that's home. And so I agree with what your concept or what you are trying to do. And I just think that makes it a lot better, and I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you. You know, our First Amendment rights, as you well know, are very important. The ability to protest, particularly on public right-of-ways. But there is a point where it turns into harassment with bullhorns and screaming at people in the middle of the night and blocking traffic, perhaps. So that's a line that we need. And the punishment here is fairly light, and that's okay, but it does give law enforcement a capability if there's no local ordinance. Mr. President, I move third reading.
I got
what I got to do? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I did move for adoption amendment. That's unanimous consent, use previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Smithman amendment's adopted. Thanks, Senator Smithman. All right, Senator Orr.
I'd move third reading using the previous roll, Mr. President.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 199 passes. Thanks, Senator Orr. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 13 of the calendar, Senate Bill 162 by Senator Butler relating to the Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. BR pending.
Senator Butler.
Mr. President, this deals with the Board of Medical Examiners, veterinary, and move adoption of BR previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 13 of the calendar, Senate Bill 162 by Senator Butler relating to the Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners.
Senator Butler.
Mr. President, I have an amendment.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 162 by Senator Butler. Replace line 12 on page 1 with the following. Replace line 28 through 29 on pages 1 and 2 with the following.
All right, Senator Butler.
Adoption use previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senator Butler amendment's adopted.
Move adoption, Mr. President, for third reading, previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 162 passes. Thank you, Senator Butler. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill 169 by Senator Allen relating to municipalities. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Allen.
this bill, under existing law, city may require a business to obtain a local business license that is based on gross receipts. This bill will allow any business paying a city business license based on gross receipts to deduct from gross receipts any excise tax imposed by the federal, state, and local governments. Mr. President, at this time, I move to pass BR, use the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill 169 by Senator Allen relating to municipalities.
Mr. President.
Senator Allen.
I move to pass, use the previous roll.
All right. Senator Smithman.
I'd like to be recognized, but I have a question.
All right, you're recognized.
Yes, sir.
I'm recognized. Okay. Yeah. Explain to me the difference. All right. What to kind of tell me what we doing now, And then, if you can tell me, after we pass this bill, what different we'll be doing?
Okay?
And I'm asking you because I don't know.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Well, currently, you and I and the citizens of Alabama pays X number of taxes on gas pumps, okay? For instance, like gasoline. The tax on gasoline is right at 50 cents.
Okay.
Per gallon.
I got you.
Okay? And diesel, the tax on a diesel, we're talking about federal, state, and local taxes now, okay?
Okay.
State, federal, and local taxes. Then on the diesel, it's 57.1% on the average, okay?
Okay.
So, all right, so when you figure in the net profit per gallon, you know, so the merchant, the convenience stores that has these facilities to help you fill your car with fuel, you know, you got delivery issues, you got equipment issue, you got insurance, you got rent, you got labor. So that currently under current law is considered the gross receipts. So it's a double tax issue because when you go pay your business tax, I mean your license, your business license, you know, when you get that once a year, then you're basing that on your gross receipts. So the current law is that those total numbers are in that number. And so this piece of legislation is dealing with taking those taxes out so you won't be double taxed.
Well, so are you saying that if I own I'm trying to understand, okay?
Yes, sir.
Are you saying that if I own a service station, all right, and I buy gas from the refinery, and then when I pay them for the gas, do I have to then pay them tax on that gas when I buy it from them? Even though I'm a business, do I have to pay tax to the refinery? If I bought, you know, 200 gallons to put in my pumps, and I had to pay, let's say, $50,000, and then do I have to pay tax to them?
Yeah.
I have to pay.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, now I paid tax to them. All right, now how am I double taxed? I'm just trying to figure out.
All right, so what's happening is that currently, under current law, is that if you're a convenience store owner, okay, you're paying on a gross receipts. You know, when you're buying your business license, that's what's happening, okay?
Got it now. You know, in other words, you trying to skim back from paying a tax on the tax.
Absolutely, so a double tax. Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
With that complete understanding, I yield all this back to you.
Absolutely.
I yield the mic, the bill, and everything back to you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Smitherman.
Hey, Senator, many of your constituents back home will appreciate this piece of legislation.
Well, I do too.
All right. Well, thank you. Senator Allen.
I move passes to Houston Bridges Road.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 169 passes. Thanks, Senator Allen. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 18 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 90 by Senator Livingston relating to taxation and revenue. BIR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Livingston.
move we use the BIR we used in previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 18 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 90 by Senator Livingston relating to taxation and revenue.
Mr. President, this is a pretty simple bill. Last year, we passed a Sweet Grown Act that allowed value-added products to be sold without sales tax. This clearly states that medical cannabis is not part of that, and it is subject to tax. So if there's no questions, I move final passage using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 90 passes. Thanks, Senator Livingston.
Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 28 of the calendar, House Bill number 55 by Representative Gavan relating to health, BR pending.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the BR, use the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 28 of the calendar, House Bill number 55 by Representative Gavan relating to health.
All right, Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill brings closure to parents that have had a miscarriage, and it allows the Health Department statistics, vital statistics, to issue a birth certificate to those parents. If there are no questions, I move for final passage using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 55 passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Coleman Madison. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 33 of the calendar, House Bill number 62 by Representative Robbins relating to building codes, BR pending.
Senator Kelly.
Mr. President, I move by adoption of the BR by the previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 33 of the calendar, House Bill number 62 by Representative Robbins relating to building codes.
Senator Kelly.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt this by previous roll. This bill has already passed the Senate. This is a companion bill, sir.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, sir.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 62 passes. Thanks, Senator Kelly. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 17 of the calendar, House Bill number 65 by Representative Collins relating to competitive bidding, BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Elliott.
move BR using previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 17 of the calendar, House Bill number 65 by Representative Collins relating to competitive bidding.
Mr. President,
Senator Elliott.
This bill takes the bid limit for our education folks up to 40, I think, as was amended in the House. I had the companion up here, and if there are questions, I'd yield to my colleague.
When you say up to
Senator Smithman.
what was it and
It was 15, and I moved it to 25. My colleague, Senator Roberts, put an amendment on that increased it with the Consumer Price Index. The House had moved it up to 40, which I'm fine with. Gives them some more flexibility. I mean, costs have gone up and things have gone up, and so that's where the House is now. I'm fine with that at 40 now.
explain to me how is it better that we had 15? How is it better that we had 15,000? That's what it was.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And now we've raised it higher. Wouldn't that have you correct me because I'm trying to understand. I just want you to know that my perception is that if you got these small contractors, it's a lot easier for them to get jobs if they bidding on 15,000 then they bid it on 40,000. So it seems to me that we cutting out the smaller